Welcome to Socially Unacceptable, from F***ups to Fame, the marketing podcast that celebrates the professional mishaps, mistakes and misjudgments while delivering valuable marketing and life lessons in the time it takes you to eat your lunch.
When we realized that the press caught hold that even Santa's pickup had been stolen from the parking lot, that it would be devastating. So the game became, over 10 days, was to constantly move Santa Claus to other hotels so the press could never find him.
It's a bit like the Industrial Revolution, isn't it? Are we going to see the Luddites all heading down to Silicon Valley to smash all the AI machines? And instead of Luddites, it will be $1 million a year management consultants, won't it? Trying to smash all the AI machines because suddenly their lower performing colleagues are just as good as them.
You've just got to go with it, I think.
You may as well not do it, right? If somebody doesn't spend 10,000 hours conditioning their brain to learn how to create written content, no matter what you tell them, it's not gonna work. But if you teach them how to use the machine to get a result you want, a message, a narrative, a call to action, you can take young people who are very, very ambitious and willing to learn, and you can turn them into great thinkers all of a sudden.
I mean, that just blows my mind. Welcome to Socially Unacceptable. Thanks for joining us again. In this week's episode, Will and I speak to the amazing Greg Matusky, CEO of Gregory FCA, one of the 40th largest PR firms in America. Greg describes himself as being passionate about human communications and how it powers culture, economy, and the future. He claims to be a student of Gladwell, Pinker, and Chomsky, and is not afraid to delve into the rabbit holes of linguistics and cognition. But his most recent interest lies in artificial intelligence and how it's transforming corporate comms. I know you're going to love this episode because Greg gets very practical in how you can apply it to the processes in your brand and business. If you're using people to do things creative, this is the episode for you, because Greg is all about using people and using robots. So sit back, relax, and let's listen to how you can improve the processes in your business through AI and generative AI. Enjoy. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris. Will, it's good to meet you.
So, we were just looking at your history. So to get started, we noticed that you've been in public relations in the US for more than, is it 30 years or is it even more than that?
Oh, it's been a long time. It's been more than 30 years. I started in 1986, and then I opened my own firm in 1990. So I'm the old man of the sea over here, and still paddling like hell.
And it's a top 40 US firm, right? So how many people you got working for you?
Right. We have about 110 professionals and offices in New York and Philadelphia. We started in Philadelphia. And we do a lot of technology. We do a lot of financial services, real estate, healthcare, IT, just a lot of different verticals that we really focus in on.
So PR is super competitive sector. You always have to be on the top of your game and innovative. What's the secret to being in business for 34, 35 years then?
Well, it's very easy. And if you can do this, this will be your key to success. You ready?
A good sense of humor.
Hold on to the same phone. Here it is, right?
Yeah,
Take notes.
Go on.
You got to hold on to this same telephone number and email address for 35 years. And that's really the linchpin to success, because I get calls from people I haven't heard from in 15 years and continue to do business. But seriously, I think it is flexibility. And I think one of the hallmarks of myself and my firm is that we're able to shift quickly as the markets change, as technology changes, and as our industry changes. And we welcome that change, and we love flowing with the ebbs and flows of the PR ocean. So I think flexibility is the number one key, and as long as you're flexible, you will always have a vantage point, and you will always have a career in public relations.
So we had an episode about 4 or 5 episodes ago. We interviewed Ant Cousins, and he said we always ask a guest who's the one person we should get on the show. We'll ask you at the end as well. We always do. And he said you've got to speak to Greg. So I said, okay, if you were me, what would you ask him? And he said, and I'll quote him here, he said, well, so he was into AI very early because his son was into AI, and I'll come on to that in a minute. And you developed your own in-house models. He'd be very he'd be interested in how hard it was when you started versus how hard it is now that ChatGPT came out in November, when just over a year ago. So he's saying how hard was it working in AI before ChatGPT, and how hard is it since?
Well, I think that's a great question. It's a great setup, because when we started, we really didn't know what was going to happen as far as ChatGPT or anything like that. So we realized that maybe we could tech enable the process of PR. And my son, who has an engineering degree and an MBA from a esteemed university, said, I bet you I could digitize the way you create content. And I told him, I bet you can't. And so years before the AI revolution, we started to digitize everything we had created as far as content and create a database of it. And for instance, if we wanted to see a news release that we had done about a capital raise for a technology company and how we explained it, we'd go into the database, it was all tagged, and it would come up with examples of how we did that in the past. It was awkward. It didn't work real well, but it did help us accelerate the ability to deliver a work product to our clients. So then in December or November of 2022, out comes ChatGPT. And the first time I saw it, I literally giggled. I said, this is it. This is it. We've created all these, what we didn't know were prompts. All we have to do is to apply them to what this machine can do. So in 2021, at the end of 2021, we premiered internally our first generative AI tool, which wrote a release in front of the whole company at our annual meeting. That next year we took and we kept refining it, and then ChatGPT came out. The difference between them and now is the velocity with which change is coming. I mean, I often joke, if I take a weekend off from following my X feeds on generative AI, I come in the morning and I feel like I haven't prepared for the final exam because I'm so far behind after 2 days. So what started as trying to envision how this would work has really come full circle, and now it's a game of keeping current with all the advances and then socializing it throughout the firm. And that's really my challenge right now. I was an early believer in it. I'm the head of the firm. And how do I imbue all my teammates with the same intrinsic interest and same mastery so that they can come back to me with great ideas and great findings from their own experimentation and development.
So you're using it in terms of processes then? You're using it. So most people listening to this podcast, this is like the fourth podcast where we've mentioned AI. And I said it's pretty much coming into every conversation because it's proliferating into everything, isn't it? But people want to know practically what can they do in their day-to-day job. And what Ant was saying is that you guys have actually implemented it in terms of pretty much all the processes you're doing. And he said I should ask you about that and how you use different things within your business and get everyone to use them, because you have some people in agencies or any business, right, that are innovators, that are early adopters like me and yourself. That's what you are. But some people, you've got laggards, right, too. If you've got more than 30, 40, 50 people, there'll be 2 or 3 people thinking, I don't want to use that. I know how to do this. So how have you got past all that, and how have you pushed it through in terms of processes in your company?
Well, twice a week we have AI training sessions led by we've taken a couple individuals, professionals from our content team, and now they're advocates and they're evangelists. And every other day, just about, they hold an hour-long training session where we go over workflow and prompts. And at those sessions, we get about 80% turnout within the firm, and that's pretty high when you consider some of the positions aren't really client-facing or, administrative. That's been a big push. And then we take the laggards who accept it and get a bounce out of it or doing well, and we showcase them. So the whole message there is, hey, they weren't believers, but now they are, and that's always a big step forward. There's 3 factors here. One is content generation, and that's table stakes. Like, Anyone should be able to do that at a pretty high level, I think, at this point. The next is brainstorming, and the next is what Ant was talking about, and that's workflow. And what we try to do is find those points of friction in the client-agency relationship. And they're all over, and we don't see them because that's just the way we do business, right? But we take those points of friction and we try to automate them. I'll give you an example. One point of friction we'll hear often if we're doing content from the client is, it's good, but it just doesn't sound like us. And that's a common refrain. Well, what we've done is we've created a voice of the client, and it's a test that the client can take. It's a prompt that they can put into their own chat GPT. And it's based off 20 different nonfiction writers, everyone from Jack Welch to Barack Obama. And it gives you 5 samples, and you don't know who these voices are. And it could be on a very generalized subject. Is there life other than in the universe other than the Earth, right? And you read them and you say, which one emulates your style or you would like to emulate? You go, 3. And then it mixes them again. The winner's in the second round. You don't know that. It's a different topic. And you'll say 4. And then it does it again. And at the end then, for us, it gives us a read. This is who this individual most likely would want to write like, that if you could assume that voice and insert it into their content, you overcome that friction, right? And we do the same with media training. I mean, right now we have an automated media training prompt, which literally on the iPhone, right, on your phone, will ask progressively more difficult questions of a client. Then it will analyze their answers. It will give better ways of responding, and it'll give them a strength and weakness report at the end, and then create a sample article that is both positive and a sample article that is negative. And that's amazing. I mean, that can be done in literally 45 minutes. And that overcomes the friction of after you've media trained somebody and they haven't practiced, right? That happens often. You media train them, they're all excited, and yet they still haven't done enough practice. This is something you can do, a CEO or a subject matter expert could do in their car on their way home. So all these processes have an automated approach that you can embed in the practice of PR, which will not reduce your fees, but increase the value with which you interface with clients. And that's our goal.
It's good to hear about these practical applications. I think we have these conversations a lot, and it's very high level,
theoretical.
Yeah. But this is great. You mentioned brainstorming, actually, Greg.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that. Are you using AI then to how are you using it in the context of creativity and brainstorming then?
Yeah, because before you go into how you use it, people can use it for brainstorming. You can ask it basic questions, give it clear instructions on a brief, and ask it to come up with some ideas. But often the ideas are a bit, they're sort of 3 out of 5 or 6 out of 10. They're not going to win. For me, they're not the award-winning, brilliant ones that a client would want and hire you off the back of. Is that fair? Do you think?
I think it is fair. I mean, if you prompt it generally, it'll come back with, you should start a podcast, or have you thought about a blog, or you should do a social media campaign, which of course we've all thought of, right? But if you go deeper and you look at that list, if it comes back with 1 or 2, then you have something you can take to a human audience and put the dressing on. I'll give you an example. Now when we brainstorm, we never come in cold. Right? Hey, we're going to brainstorm. Come on in. Let's talk about it. Here's the product. Here's the service. Here's the client. We always say go to ChatGPT first and come in with 2 of your best ideas. Okay? So that increases the throttle. First, you have 50 ideas. 30 of them might be identical, right? But you still have 20. And then it overcomes the phenomenon. People come to brainstorms, and the first thing they say is, this might sound crazy, right? Because they're in front of their peers. And they're not as open as they might be. But in the realm of generative AI, it's a safe space. You can do really crazy things. For instance, one of the things I like to do when brainstorming is, instead of associative brainstorming, I do disassociate brainstorming. I say I have 2 very disparate ideas. How would they fit together, right? I did this recently. We do a lot of financial services. I said, I want to see how we could connect retirement planning with VR goggles. And it came up with V-tirement. See your future retirement through,
That's brilliant.
Today using our goggles.
I hope you copyright that.
No, I give it out all the time. I did sell it in a proposal, though. The client never did it, but they loved it.
It's brilliant. I love the idea.
They retained us.
They retained you, yeah, exactly.
So,
sometimes it keeps you the client, doesn't it? It's little ideas like that. Bit of creativity.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you can take that then to a human brainstorming, and they'll say, wow, we could collect the data up front, because you'd have to know, right, what the individual's financial situation is and what their hopes and aspirations are. That's good information in the financial services sector, right? We could, if their goal, for instance, is to send their kid to college, we could team with different colleges to have a VR tour of those colleges. Or if it's to have a vacation home, we could go to some realtors and have them look at some of their portfolio of homes and put them in the goggles. So, it'll give you the seed of an idea, perhaps, right? That then the human element can put flesh on, and that's what we try to do with brainstorming.
So I've got another question for you. So. And I've been through a bit of research. I've seen that you launched a service as well, which fascinated me. I wanted you to explain a bit about it. And it was called writerelease.com. Do you want to explain what you did with that, Greg?
Well, when ChatGPT came out, we said, look, we've got to embrace this. We got to be thought leaders. We got to show that we can develop these skins. And that we understand the process. And we already had, I told you, that database, right, that has searched for it. And that my son had went through this process where he'd ask me every kind of content we develop and the information, the questions you would have to ask to find that. So we took all that and we came up with 70 different flavors of press release. And it's very templated. So if you're doing a new hire release, right, it'll ask you specific questions about the new hire. And it'll prompt you through. It's a templated approach, kind of like Jasper as opposed to OpenAI. Mm-hmm. And we found we had many learnings from that. Yeah. One is that in the beginning, it would always have the CEO's quote as, we're excited. We're excited to announce, right? Like, I would love to see a CEO once say, we're not really excited about this new hire, but it's really the best we could do,
Or delighted is the other one, isn't it? We always see that. We're delighted to announce.
Right. Honored. We're proud, right? So one of the things we did is we put a prompt in there that said, what is the vision of the company and how does this new hire fulfill that vision? All of a sudden, the machine for the quote would go to that instead of go to the internet and find all the bad releases that say delighted, delighted, excited. And because of that, we get much more meaningful quotes that often go through with very little editing. Again, reducing the friction. And it's still available. writerelease.com is still online, and we've had thousands and thousands of users who've gone to that and use it to write news releases.
Hang on a minute. We might have to edit this out. You're talking us out of a job here, Greg. This is what we do, isn't it? We write releases.
The human touch is always needed, Chris, isn't it?
That's true.
So, Greg, I was doing a bit of research about you, and I was reading some of your previous blog posts, and I noticed in 2023, you said corporate communications needs to lead the AI revolution, becoming enterprise evangelists for this technology. So, has that actually happened or not? Have kind of corporate comms taken this by the scruff of the neck and are leading it, or is that failed to take hold?
Well, I think it's on two levels. I think in enterprises, IT really wants to hold on to that grasp. They want to control it, and they want to scare the hell out of everybody about the issues that's behind it. I think the general counsel and legal wants to scare the hell out of everyone because they want you to retain them, that write a policy. I just got off a call yesterday with the Public Relations Council of America, which is a New York-based organization. They came out with guidelines. I think they're very good, and that's being led by communications professionals. So I am encouraged. I think the communications sector, the strategic communications sector, is coming around, and they're understanding that for 300,000 years or 30,000 years, I would say 30,000 years, what separated humans, Homo sapiens, from Neanderthals was our ability to tell stories. That's one theory. And now machines are going to tell stories. And IT doesn't tell stories, right? Legal doesn't tell stories. Communicators know the value of stories for delivering information. And that's why I think it needs to rest with us. I really do.
I really feel like this is the excitement that's behind AI, and the fact that some people are there's snake oil salesmen out there selling AI to do this and AI to do that, and it reminds me of the social media revolution of the 2000s. It's right back down there where there's some people doing some brilliant work like yourselves and Ant, and there's proper quality people out there, and there's some people that are just out there to make a quick buck, like explaining how to use Facebook back in the day. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? It's a complete revolution.
I see it on X every day. Download this super prompt that'll make you $30,000 a month. Okay, I mean they're all over. But the reality is, it goes back to the nature, I think, of OpenAI. And I'm a big OpenAI guy. I know, there's Claude and others, but we use Teams OpenAI so that we're closed down and secure, and that we have probably 80 licenses within the firm that allow us to share and collaborate. Right, so the people on that team can see everything, and it's never used. The prompts are never used to train future models. So we're big believers in OpenAI, and it was built as a very generalist platform. There was no purpose to it. It's up to us to build the purpose. So that to do that, I think we have to achieve a level of mastery on that basis, that we understand how it works in the general, so that we can get what it means in the specific. So, 3 years ago, Jasper was marketing to me every day, all day long, and it's a very templated. It would say, if you're going to do a LinkedIn post, you click on this, and it gave you templates and formats. And that's one way it thought it was going to go. But I think the people that really master it are going to use large language models like OpenAI and Claude, and they're going to know how to direct these machines. And the studies have shown that the large language models like OpenAI do better than tuned models. A recent one, the best medically tuned LLM, didn't outperform OpenAI when it was tested. And that's because I believe there's such a corpus of knowledge within these large language models, especially for creatives, that you want to hear from everyone. You want to have disassociative opportunities and associative. You don't want to be locked into one way of thinking. Mark Andreessen, the famous investor and VC guy, he told the story that he went to a law firm, an international law firm, and he thought for sure their number one concern was, we don't want any plagiarism, right? We don't want any hallucinations, right? The famous case of the attorney who, I want to rip this guy's head off, who submitted a brief that had all these fake citations in them that set everyone back so far, which I think speaks more about the state of his art than it does AI. But anyway, with regard to this meeting they had, he walks in, he goes, look, we can make this so it'll never hallucinate, but you're going to lose creativity. We can tune it just for the legal firm. All right, but we can do this. And the partner said, no. We can pay junior associates to find out if a citation is right or wrong. What we want to see is the glorious and weird arguments that could occur in a courtroom that we could be prepared for or that we could present, right? And even if it's a fake citation, maybe there's a line of reasoning that has never been considered before, and that's what we're going to value. So I think that these charlatans will fall by the wayside because people will learn that they're not really of value. But those who really go into this and understand how to use the weirdness of AI, and it's weird, right? I mean, this is not software where 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 tomorrow could be 7 in the world of AI. The same prompt under different conditions, different times of year, different day, different emojis can deliver different results. For many people, not creatives and not communicators, but many, they can't handle that inconsistency. But as you know, Chris and Will, in our business, it is more art than science. There is no definitive answer, right? We're very, very, very confident working in a world where the professional next door can write something much different than mine, but no less of value. So I think we have a huge opportunity here with that kind of flexibility and mindset.
And people buy on emotion. They don't buy on. They buy on creative. You know, like when we were talking about when you gave the VR example, and we both got quite excited by it. You buy based on what makes you excited and the emotion that a campaign brings you. I am interested as well in the redactive side of AI and looking at like for lawyers and contracts. I would be worried because now you could just scan your 76-page property contract in and ask it to pull it to pieces and point out where these things are wrong or loophole. Surely it could do that, and you could ask it for loopholes or to rewrite you a better contract. Or
yeah, I'm not sure what that means for billable hours because
that's what I mean. How much money are they going to lose? Because lawyers stick to the exact line, don't they?
There was a study, and I was just reviewing it this morning. It just came out yesterday from New Zealand on law firms and AI, right? And the average cost to create a document in a New Zealand law firm is $76 per document by humans. ChatGPT-4 reduced it to 26 cents. Claude reduced it to 2 cents.
Wow. It's mental, isn't it? It's crazy.
Just released. I was just reviewing it this morning just to wow you. No, I on a related topic, I was reading the study and I was like bookmarking it, weekend reading. I got to go back and digest more of this because it's mind blowing.
So what other sectors do you think are ripe for disruption? I mean, obviously we've got we've talked about law, we've talked about marketing. Are there any other kind of sectors that really need to adapt?
Well, I think what Sam Altman said we have to remember is that when he released ChatGPT, he believed, right, the first level of disruption would be truck drivers, delivery people because of autonomous vehicles, and manufacturing because of robotics. The second level would have been monotonous, tedious, white-collar activities like insurance claim processing, right? The third, which he thought would be years off, was higher level, higher paid consultants, anybody that's in the advice-driven business. And the last, he thought the domain of the gods, which would never be touched, would be creativity. And he has said this many times. He says, I was wrong. It's flipped upside down. We still don't have autonomous vehicles, and robotics is coming to manufacturing, but manufacturing employment continues to be strong. And the first thing it disrupted was creativity. And the second thing it disrupted was tedious jobs. And the third were individuals who make as much as, $1 million a year as consultants for McKinsey, who it's been shown that if you know how to use AI, could put that position in a lot of risk. An example, they did a study with Boston Consulting, a major consulting group, and they took the consultants and they ranked them on quality, and then they split them into two groups. One they gave full AI training to, and the other they gave none. And they found that the consultants who had AI training could do 25% more work in a given period. The really interesting finding is that those consultants who were ranked the lowest gained the most. They gained up to 45% in the quality of their work product, and they came within 4% of the most skilled consultants.
My God.
So I think where the boon is, contrary to what a lot of people see, and in my own practice, this is very much the case. Junior associates really quickly embrace it, and they come up to my level pretty damn quickly. For me, I'm very excited about that because now I can help launch careers much easier than I could 5 years ago. Teaching writing 5 years ago, or content, you may as well not do it. Right? If somebody doesn't spend 10,000 hours conditioning their brain to learn how to create written content, no matter what you tell them, it's not going to work. But if you teach them how to use the machine, to get a result you want, a message, a narrative, a call to action. You can take young people who are very, very ambitious and willing to learn, and you can turn them into great thinkers all of a sudden.
It just blows my mind. I've got obviously the theme of the show, Greg, because I can talk about this for hours. The theme of the show, we need to make sure we get the theme of the show in. And the theme of the show is from fuck-ups to fame. That's the theme of the show. And it's people that have made marketing mistakes and things. Now, you've sent a couple of examples in here.
And we're looking forward to hearing about them.
And I wanted to make sure we got them in the show because they're cracking.
Shall we start with Auntie Anne? And for our UK listeners, do you want to explain who Auntie Anne is and what a kind of iconic US figure she is?
Sure. I live on the East Coast in a state called Pennsylvania, and we were settled by the Germans. And in the 1700s, there was a religious sect that came to Pennsylvania called the Amish. And the Amish eschew all technology. They live among us with the technologies of the 1700s. They use horses to plow their fields. They have no electricity, no TV, no radio. I spend half my time in central Pennsylvania, and I often go to their farmers markets, and I talk to them. I buy my wood for my fireplace for them. And so it's not unusual for us to come in contact with these individuals. So years ago, as a young man, I get a call. There's a new business in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Lancaster, Pennsylvania is the epicenter of the Amish sect. And a business has found a recipe for a hand-rolled soft pretzel. And they need PR because they're franchising. So I get on my horse and I go out. And I meet with the marketing director, which just hired. And I was joking about my horse, but I go and
I just had a great vision of you just getting on your horse.
That is a vision, yeah.
Right. He's from the regular world, and he sits me down. And he goes, "Now you're going to meet Ann Byler, who owns the business." And Ann's story is simple. She's very religious. She's a former Amish person. She didn't join the sect, right? Very connected to the community. And she's an evangelistic Christian, evangelist, right? Which is the path often for those who leave Amish. And she's going to meet with her. If she likes you, you're on board. So we go to the meeting. We talk a little bit, and this is a whole different world because the Amish never want to come forward, right? They're not evangelistic. They don't want you to join them. They don't have any kind of propaganda. They're just a quiet people, confident in what they believe, and they don't really care about the rest of the world. And so she's explaining, I really don't want this. I don't want to be, they believe that the nail that sticks up the highest is knocked down the hardest. So, I'm a PR guy, and I'm supposed to promote her. And I go, well, Ann, we'll be sensitive to that. And she's like, great. So then she goes, all right, we have to go to lunch. So I figure we're going to go to a restaurant somewhere. We get in our cars, and she takes us down this country lane on a farm where her mother, who is Amish and still lives on the farm, has been making us what they call supper, is their lunch, all day long. And there's all these Amish. I mean, it was some of the heaviest food I could not consume all this. There were carrots and butter, and there was beef, and there was poultry, right? So I come on board, and she calls me in and says, I have a favor to ask before we get started. And I go, sure, what? She goes, I would like to appear on the 700 Club. The 700 Club was run by a guy named Pat Robertson, who was a big-time Christian evangelist who ran for president of the United States, right? And this show was over the top. But it was her dream, and she was going to come out with her story. Her story is that she was working in a booth one day, and she got a flour delivery, and it was the wrong flour, and magically, spiritually, this was the perfect ingredient. It made the perfect pretzel, and there were lines out the door and people wanting to franchise her business, and she was touched by God at this moment. That's her story, right? So, and that's, the purpose of the 700 Club.
It's a nice story as well.
Well, that's great, Ann.
It's a wholesome story,
right.
Isn't it?
So I go, yeah, I think I can do that. I mean, everything seems to align. That's what they cover. Pat Robinson's running for president. I have no doubt he'd like to get into your checking account. So I think I can make this happen. So sure enough, we secure an appearance on Pat Robertson, and I go down, and she has her whole crew come down in a black van because the Amish, those who've left, the Amish don't even show chrome on their cars sometimes. We go down, I'm in the audience, and beforehand she goes, "Now, Greg, I have to tell you, I'm going to give testimony today." And I go, "Testimony? We didn't talk about that in media training, but I figure that's her telling her story." I go, "Well, you have a great story." She goes, "No, I'm going to give testimony." I have no idea what this means, right? So I'm sitting in the audience, and I'm all excited. This is a big score for me. I'm a young guy, and I'm all full of myself. And so they come back to the show, and Pat Robinson does a preview before the commercials. And he goes, "Next up, a miraculous story of a woman who was given a recipe that has launched an empire and how she walked away from the devil." I'm like, "The devil? What's the devil? There was no devil?" I'm looking around like, "What's the devil?" Right? So they come back and they start the story. And she tells, "I've been very fortunate. God gave me this recipe for hand-rolled soft pretzels. I have 100 franchises now." And he goes, "That's a miraculous story. And now tell us about how you walked away from the temptation of the devil." And I'm like, the temptation of the devil has no place in this story, right? So Anne goes on to tell the story of how she had moved to Texas and become involved with a church. And that church had a pastor who she had an affair with when she was married, and he defrauded the entire parish of everything they had. And I'm sitting there like, this was my shot, and it's totally destroyed. Like, why? You didn't know why? So she comes up after the fact, and she goes, "How'd it go?" I go, "Anne, I thought you did good, but the whole backstory of the defrauding parishioners and sleeping with the pastor, we didn't, what?" And she looks at me and she goes, "Greg, I'm going to tell you something. 5 years from now, a publication like Forbes will come to call on me. And this is public record. And they will think they have something salacious. And I will say, 'Oh, that's an old story. I've already told that story. You should watch the Pat Robinson episode.'" So I learned that she took the air out of the balloon and protected herself, right? Where I couldn't even put it together at that point. So is that a fuck up? It was on my part because I didn't know what she was doing, and I didn't understand the value, right, of putting bad news out sometimes. And I think that's the takeaway, that if you put bad news out, it can never be used against you in the future.
Yeah,
and that's what I learned from Annie Ann's hand-rolled soft pretzels.
She sort of schooled you in how to do PR there. She sort of took the worst thing possible and shared it first. So nobody can ever come back, like you're saying, and get her again.
Brilliant move. And it's a hugely, I was looking up the company. There's something like 1,200 franchises now, isn't there, globally? It's a hugely successful business, isn't it?
It's just, she sold it and now lives still in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. But it's a hugely successful. We stayed with them till they got about 500 franchises. Then they moved on. But you're right. I mean, it's a very good lesson to learn as a young person, the value of deflating the balloon and putting out the bad news so that it can't be used against you in the future. And there's real value in that.
One thing that interests me about that story is they don't use electricity. So what's she cooking? How does the store work that do it, the restaurants?
Well, she had never joined the faith, which is much better than leaving the faith.
Right.
If you leave the faith, if you go through it at age 16, become Amish, and then you leave, right, you can be isolated from the community. If you never join, right, you can stay connected. And she had stayed connected. She had been a driver for the Amish when they went to farmers markets and eventually had her own stall, and that's where she booth, and that's where she got this miraculous recipe that took over the world.
I'm just picturing you sitting there, hearing this story coming out, sweating in your suit, thinking, what is happening here? And I think we've all had those moments, haven't we, when we're thinking, Christ, what's going on here?
Interviews where you've briefed your client very, very carefully, you've practiced it, you've gone through the FAQs, these days, going back to the AI, you've run it through the AI and looked for the angles they could take, this particular journalist, and then they tell you that they've slept with the devil. Oh, God.
Yeah, that's a curveball, isn't it?
It's something that I've not come across. So it's a unique one.
From sleeping with the devil to morose Santa Claus, I'd love to hear about this story. And it involves crime. It involves hiding an individual. It's got a lot, hasn't it?
Q animation for fuck up number 2.
Does. It does, and I think this is. I think the takeaway here is how everyone wants to attack success. So when I was relatively young, I got the opportunity to handle a mall which was opening, which would have been at the time the largest mall in the U.S. And this is a great story because it came during a recession, and they were bringing all these new brands, all these new retailers into this region, and it went great. We got them tremendous exposure. But what I didn't know at that time is there's forces at work against that. And there's people that want to point out the negative. And I didn't realize. I'll never forget the day of opening. There was a traffic jam in front of the mall, and how that became a major issue with the press. Is it going to be like this every day? This is unlivable, untenable. And so I didn't realize, too, the role sometimes that law enforcement plays in inflating crime so that they can see more funding. So the local police force wanted more funding from the mall so that they could employ more police officers. And there had been some incidents in the parking lot of carjacking and robbery, but not anything out of the normal. So that Christmas, the mall had paid for a real Santa Claus. They were importing this individual who traditionally plays Santa Claus, who had the full white beard and the whole shtick down. And he comes into the mall first day, and he goes out, he leaves then and goes into the parking lot, and his pickup truck had been stolen, right? Now, at this point, we were really in crisis mode because we wanted to damp down any negative stories. When we realized that if the press caught hold that even Santa's pickup had been stolen from the parking lot, that it would be devastating. So the game became, over 10 days, was to constantly move Santa Claus to other hotels so the press could never find him. We took him. He never appeared. We just hit him thinking it would die down. It never died down. Investigative reporters were on the story. I'll never forget, I go into the mall to meet with Santa, right, to figure out how we're going to do this, and I go to the general manager. So what kind of mindset is Santa in? And the guy looks at me and he goes, Santa's very morose. I'm like, Santa's morose? Like, I had to get the one morose Santa? Emotionally, this individual was devastated by it. If the media would have caught him and interviewed, it would have been disastrous. So what started as a PR assignment became very much a thriller as I physically moved Santa to hotels every other day. So the lesson there is, every good deed, no good deed goes unpunished. And the good deed was they got a ton of PR. It was a very successful opening, only then to be reduced to the chaperone and the personal security of a Santa Claus.
Heroes one day, villains the next. And did you get away with it?
Yeah. He never appeared on camera. Yeah, until now, right. That was so long ago.
He never appeared? He never did any interviews?
He never did any interviews. We completely just blotted out the story.
And then shipped him
Which
back
I never
off.
got credit for because, you never get credit in crisis when bad things don't happen. You only get the blame when bad things do happen. So.
And then shipped him off to the North Pole, never to return.
So,
cracking story.
We like to think highly of ourselves until we're faced head on with these fuck ups and failures, as you call them.
The only way that could have got any better is if he'd named his truck Rudolph or something. That would have been brilliant.
Or if it was a sleigh, an actual sleigh.
Yeah, if it was an actual sleigh that had been stolen.
I don't know what the market is for stolen sleighs compared with pickups.
It's not big, is it?
No.
So
it's even worse. When they stole the truck, they stole his family Bible that was 100 years old. I mean, he had this incredible story. If the media would have gotten hold of that, it would have been just one more big slam against the opening of this major mall. So it was 2 weeks of absolute hell, which should have been a victory lap.
The story of the morose Santa Claus. I love it.
Right.
So I've been looking at a few of your predictions. You've made some predictions on LinkedIn very recently. So I believe so. Anyway, so can I go through a few of these and see what you think of them? Obviously,
Sure.
You've predicted them. So you said that the super creator. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's what's going to emerge this year is individuals who can do. I mean, the great test from a professor at the Wharton School of Business here in Philadelphia was how much work can you do in 30 minutes with AI? That was his initial test. He just reduced it to how much work can you do in 57 seconds with AI, right? And the super creator is that individual who can take an idea and execute very quickly with a lot of content, right? So that just don't write a brief. You write a brief, a press release, a blog post, a LinkedIn post. You have a PowerPoint made and a script, all from the same kind of prompt. And that's a super creator, somebody that can generate a ton of work in a very condensed period that's high quality. So I think, again, Mark Andreessen on one of his podcasts, he said, where are the book authors who are producing a book a month? They're coming. And I do think that's coming to PR.
And you also said that ChatGPT will become a target and lose its market share.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing some of that, right? This was made before the chaos in the boardroom and some of the issues that have arisen. So I think there has been people are a little scared. Enterprises are concerned about building their applications on ChatGPT. The corporate governance was very weird as it was built. And, they have to still raise a lot of money. And would Microsoft support that going forward? So, yeah, I think we are seeing a little bit of diminishment of its brand. I mean, Sam Altman, he was caught where he said he had no financial interest in OpenAI. But then again, many of their spinoffs, he had financial interests. This is all part of what the media does, right? You can be the flower child one day and the villain the next day. So, yeah, I think OpenAI is going to have some headwinds with regard to its brand and its permanence and resilience moving forward.
But the one that I really liked, and this is tying quite a few of our episodes together, is Microsoft. This is a prediction from you. Microsoft will buy X, brackets. What? Wait, what? X's real value in its human-generated content. Elon Musk will outfox everyone by suing Microsoft and OpenAI and settle for stock and a board seat. That's a brilliant prediction. That's very bold.
Very specific, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to. So you're saying that Elon's going to join Microsoft?
We might not see that, but what we did see was the New York Times sue OpenAI, right? Which I didn't see that coming. And it's close to what the prediction for Twitter. Twitter's value now is in its human-generated content, I believe. And we're going to need an ocean of human-generated content to continue to train large language models, right? Now, Elon came out with its own, right? With his own generative AI. The name escapes me. I haven't used it in a while. I should. I paid the fee. But the value there is that his is extremely real time with news, and he has the human generated content. So one path, and Microsoft doesn't. Remember, Google does. It has YouTube. It has other places that it can get, and it has search. It has other places it can get human-generated content. So I think Microsoft will go on the prey to find human-generated content. One place you could get that is X. You get that. Elon sues OpenAI. We'll see what it does on the same grounds as the New York Times, that you can't use our content to train and that there's plagiarism within the model, right? They settle. They do a deal. Microsoft gets access or gets X, and Elon just ratchets it up. He makes up his, what was it, a $66 million investment, $36 million $36 billion investment?
Yeah.
$36 billion. And so we probably won't see that prediction come true, but the analogous one might be the New York Times. So had some – and think of this. What if Microsoft bought the New York Times? They could do it. They had enough money that they could do it, which would be the same artifice, but different players. Same script, different players.
Yeah.
These are a bit bolder and a bit more exciting than some of our predictions, aren't they?
Yeah, we've just done
I'm feeling inadequate.
Yeah, true. I like bold. So you've been on the show now, Greg. If you were us and who did you think would make a great guest and why to tell their fuck-ups on this show?
Well, you did this to me on books, and I don't really read books about marketing PR. I read very generalized books about things. Same thing with how I stay involved. But one person I would love to have on my podcast is, aside from Chris and Will, would be a professor named Ethan Mollick, who is one of the most thoughtful people I've ever run across with how it relates to generative AI and how it's going to disrupt the workplace, how it's going to disrupt education. And he's a really hard get. He won't come on mine, but that's the one person I would like to spend the next 3 hours to picking his brain. A lot of what I've learned, as much as I told you that 30-minute test comes from him. I refer to him often, and I urge people to follow him on X. He's just he for instance surfaced that study on New Zealand yesterday, and it's why I was aware of it this morning. So he is probably one of the world's greatest thought leaders in a positive way of what generative AI can do for the world. So I would definitely look to have him.
It's been a fascinating conversation,
Yeah,
Greg.
it's been wide-ranging, hasn't it? There's been some really kind of practical AI applications, some fantastic anecdotes. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
And where can people find you online if they want to get in touch with you, Greg?
Well, GregoryFCA.com. Look up my name, Greg Matusky. There'll be breadcrumbs back to both those organizations. And I want to thank you for having me. I love your format. I love how you roll with the punches and unstructured. So I hope I delivered.
Yeah, you did. It was great.
You did deliver, yeah.
I'd have you on again in a heartbeat. It was brilliant. It's a fascinating conversation. So, yeah, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for that, Greg.
Thank you.
Well, that was a fascinating conversation. Some of the things that he had to say fascinated me. First of all, brainstorms and everybody.
Brainstorming.
I thought we could do that here. Like we use it for brainstorming, but actually asking everybody that's coming to the brainstorm to come up with 2 or 3 ideas from AI themselves already.
Yeah, that's a totally different approach, isn't it? And he's absolutely right. You get particularly some of the junior staff come into brainstorms and they can be quite intimidating, can't they?
Yeah, and so you've definitely got two or three ideas that are quite useful already. Even if they're absolute shit, it doesn't really matter. You've got starters, the kernels of great ideas. And
combining 2 diametrically opposed ideas, and it will then come up with ideas of how they can be combined was fascinating as well.
I love that.
For me, he's been in comms longer than this, but he's run Gregory FCA for 34 years. You know,
I didn't ask him how he came up with the name of the company.
What's the FCA stand for?
Football Club Association? I don't know, actually. I have to
but
check
he's
that out.
I think that one of the dangers of this
FCA
industry, is that you can become really cynical and jaded, can't you? But he hasn't got any of that. He's got passion. He's totally
energy.
Yeah, so much energy. Brilliant.
It's like the energy came through and the enthusiasm and passion. I was like, he's making me want to go off and like ask everybody to. I just felt like people should have more conversations about how they're using it, what can they use, how can they use it in their day-to-day job, and examples showing other people, even if they're laggards. Because that's my point. There's always a few of you that are using it regularly and you're trying to push it through and you show the best examples, but there's always laggards in businesses that just don't want to use, I just do it this way, I've always done it this way. But the fact that they were celebrating that and saying, okay, well, what about this? And then they'd show the laggards using it as well. So, and
he's really kind of built in processes to his firm, hasn't he? Where he's really kind of formalised those discussions. It's not just a bolt on, is it? It's absolutely intrinsic to everything they do.
No, because his son is actually qualified in AI as well. And I didn't actually get into that as one of the questions we might ask him on the next time we get him on. But his son, Jono, has invented a tool called Newsprint, which I've just been using these last couple of days. And it's AI generated news, as in like not in generated, but AI picked, curated news to your and it asks you a load of questions, similar to what he was talking about with Jasper. It asks you a load of questions, and then it generates you a completely bespoke newsletter every day that's based on news gathered by the AI that should be right to what you're looking for.
So for me, it's a bit like the Industrial Revolution, isn't it? Are we going to see the Luddites all heading down to Silicon Valley to smash all the AI machines? And instead of Luddites, it will be $1 million a year management consultants, won't it? Trying to smash all the AI machines because suddenly their lower performing colleagues are just as good as them.
You've just got to go with it, I think. Like this is the fourth podcast we've done. We've done one with Andrew Bruce Smith. Check that one out. That was the first one. We did one with Ant Cousins. There was a one that we did on one of the webinars that we did. And like he said, it's constantly changing. And that, I liked it wasn't too theoretical. It was actually really practical, what you can do today to improve how your business... It's all about processes, isn't it? AI.
And if you're a guest on the show in the future, try and beat those fuck-ups, I say.
Oh, the fuck-ups are great, yeah. I love the fuck-ups. We're looking for good fuck-ups, so if you've got a great fuck-up you want to be on the show, drop us a line because we would love to hear from you. Thanks for listening, everybody. Yep, we're on to over 34,000 downloads, so that's not just my mum and my family at the moment, so thanks for everybody that's listening. And thanks to we're on a quest to find our furthest away listener. Where did we get last time, Will?
We got to...
I had someone in Dubai the other day. I saw that.
Yeah, we've had...
I think they're on holiday.
The Cook Islands. I think there's someone in the Cook Islands. We've had someone in Samoa.
So, drop us a line. Let us know where you're listening. We love to hear from all of you. If you enjoy the show, please tell us. Tell us in a review. Please, for God, tell us. We'd love to hear from you. We don't want to just speak into the abyss. We know you're out there listening. Get in touch with us. Tell us your story, and we'll feature you at some point. And stop laughing. I don't know where to go with this.
Right, we need to discipline Andy for that.
So thanks for listening to Socially Unacceptable. Please subscribe if you haven't already. We need every single subscriber, but you all mean a lot to me. So thanks for listening. We'll see you in a couple of weeks, and keep on fucking up.
Thank you for listening to Socially Unacceptable. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to follow us on social media on Instagram, TikTok and LinkedIn at Prohibition PR and Twitter at Socially UA. We would love to hear some of your career fuck-ups so we can share them on the show. For more information on the show, search Prohibition PR in your search engine and click on podcasts. Until next time, please keep pushing the boundaries and embracing the socially unacceptable.